The spiritual narcissists use religion as a sword and not a shield.
In a world of hurt and pain, we find a way to break the chain. A caring heart, a guiding light, lead us through the darkest night. With preservation in our soul, we'll rescue those who've lost control. Escape the grip of a narcissist on our journey to recovery bliss. Welcome to the Narcissist Abuse Recovery Channel with John McKenney and Padideh Jafari.
Padideh, I've missed you.
I know, I miss you too. What are you doing? You're like back in Atlanta.
You know, I am, and I got a little vacation. Went down to the coast in Florida and got on some beaches. It was really fun.
Yeah, I know. I saw some of your stuff on social media.
Yeah, it was very good. Had a really good time and just chilled out and kind of didn't do anything for a week. And guess what this is? This is the start of season 4 for us.
I know, so excited.
Can you believe that?
I don't. I actually don't. And by the way, if I sound like a frog today, for anyone listening, it's because I have bronchitis. Okay. So.
Well, good for you for making it work for today, because today's topic is really going to be special, I think, also. This will be the first time we've done a series of 2 on the same topic, and we've gotten so much positive feedback on what we did for spiritual narcissism. We wanted to do a deeper dive on it today and talk about perhaps some of the tactics that spiritual narcissists use so they can easily be identified and so that you know what's going on.
It's such a topic that most people don't talk about because it is taboo. Nobody wants to say that, they were victims of spiritual narcissists. I know I was, and it's a very difficult topic to talk about, even 15 years. 15 years ago when it happened to me, obviously I didn't know what it was, but even today when I talk about it, John, it is very triggering for me.
I would bet it is. And the other thing that I think that kind of makes the conversation taboo is that you're talking about people who consider themselves people of faith, but in practicality, they're really not. And that becomes a little problematic as well. So I think I'm convinced also that churches on the whole do not know how to deal with this well, and pastors do not know how to deal with this well. So when you bring up these kinds of things, it really does kind of have a taboo nature to it, and feels more like illicit conversation than it does welcome conversation without question.
Yes, absolutely. I think the most that the churches do is they try to counsel, and then they usually throw out the victim of the spiritual narcissism, not the actual narcissist, if you know what I mean. No, it's counterintuitive, but that's what they do because the victim, as you know, a lot of times sounds like they're crazy, right? They're saying that, they're doing this and this and this at home, and then the pastors are going, well, how can that be? I mean, they show up for church. I see that they're good with the kids, and, when they're at, children's ministry. I mean, all the things, right? So that's why it's triggering, because I went through something like this 15 years ago, and we'll dive into my story a little bit later, but I'm so glad that we're doing a part 2 on this, because I feel like people need to know that you are not alone and you are not crazy.
Absolutely true. And what you described right there with respect to the church happened to me. I mean, I sat in a counseling session with my pastor, and I had decided I wasn't going to talk a whole lot because I wanted her to communicate with him and was hoping that she would speak the truth. So for the first hour, all I did in this conversation was, when she would lie, I would say, please tell this man the truth. Please tell this man the truth. Please tell this man the truth. And the end result of this was him asking her a question and saying to her, did you ever love your husband? To which she replied, no, I never really did. Which to me is the ultimate inoffensiveness with respect to a marriage. For somebody to pretend that they loved you and make vows for those kinds of things, and then on the other side of that, to have nothing to bring to the table, and because of that deception, that to me is the most egregious of things. So I got home with my ex and had a conversation with her about this, and I told her what she'd said to me was very hurtful. And she goes, "What did I say?" And I repeated it to her, and she goes, "Oh, well, I never said that." and lived there for 6 months, and I couldn't let it go. And I said, "Look, you said this to our pastor, and I know it." And she finally goes, "Well, yeah, I did say it. Are you happy now?" So, okay, no sorrow, no repentance. But the end result of my conversation with her, with the pastor, was him saying, "You can't participate in some things in church." While meanwhile, you have this narcissist who was continued to be allowed to serve in children's ministry and lead children.
Oh my gosh. Wait a minute. I just want to get this straight. So you were told that you can't, or she was told that she can't?
I was told that I can't. I was helping on the worship team at the time. I play guitar and sing. And I was told that I was unable to go participate. But there was no discipline whatsoever for her. And the only thing the pastor told me, which he did say, he said, "Well, you're angry." And I go, "You think? I mean, I've been lied to all these years. Do you know, what would you do? And do you think that would bother you?" And he kind of consented or agreed that would trouble him. So there are tactics like this that are going on behind the scenes, and part of getting people on their side is getting this whole religious crowd around them on their side too. Now my conversation with the pastor ended right there. I didn't ever have another session with him. And that was 2 years before I divorced. Now, what I discovered in conversation with my ex afterwards was that she had continued to meet with him privately during the 2 years between that conversation and the time I divorced. And of course, she couldn't tell the truth to save her. So God knows what she said to this guy about me. And that was the beginning of trying to get this religious crowd on her side at the church. And ultimately, I lost every relationship I had with the church. They came at me with both both barrels after I divorced, and said, "You're living in sin, or you're in sin by divorcing, and basically you're going to hell." I got all this in really nice email form, but there's no accountability whatsoever for these narcissists in the church setting. And I couldn't. Somebody sat in front of me and said, "Hey, you know what? I just never. Not only do I not love my spouse, but I never love them." To me, that's one of the most egregious things a spouse could ever say to a husband, or a wife could ever say to a husband, to know that this whole thing was fake, and they are constantly and all the time trying to get people on their side, and they do this in the religious community as well in order to further the abuse.
Yeah, I want to just mention two things. The first thing is this toxic amnesia that they have, right?
Oh my gosh.
I don't remember, I didn't say, I didn't, right? And you're like holding on to everything that they say.
Yep.
Because the whole relationship is holding on by a shoestring, okay? And so this toxic amnesia, that's why when clients come in, I tell them I need a timeline, and I want them to start writing and journaling. We've talked about this before. I know you're really good at journaling. Some of my male clients, unfortunately, are not. So I ask them for a timeline, and I say, from here on out, if I'm going to be your attorney, I need you to start writing down things like when things happen, when the drop-offs are, take pictures, because sometimes, with narcissists, what happens is they'll say, "Oh, the child, came back with dirty clothes," and then they'll report you to Child Protective Services. So really, you got to start doing this. And this is not if you're co-parenting well. This is when you're co-parenting with a narcissist that manufactures evidence and facts and things like that. So the toxic amnesia just kind of popped out at me because she was denying it for a couple of weeks until she finally like blew up at you and was like, yes, I said it, And then she's
and
like,
actually that was 6 months between the time she said it and the time she owned it. And so, it certainly makes you feel like you're going crazy, and it's a very difficult thing to live in because there's absolutely no ability to go correct the relationship when somebody's lying about what they've said and spoken like that.
And then the second thing I want to say, and I only know this because obviously I follow you on social media, not only did she weaponize love, but she also weaponized sex. So it's like, not only was she saying, I don't love you, but she was also weaponizing sex and saying, well, I'm not going to have sex with you. It's going to be on my terms. And so even though the Bible, if she's going by strictly the Bible, it says that her body is really not even her body because two become one. And so all that to say is like, I'd be telling the pastor, not only does she not love me, but she's also not having sex with me. Mm-hmm. And those are two biblical things that are supposed to happen in a marriage, let's say a Christian marriage. So that's like, and he's just sitting there going, oh, well, get it together, John. Like this is your fault. What have you done that has led to this, right? That's how they look at it.
Absolutely. In fact, I will tell you that one of the things I was told in emails and in the future discussions was that because I couldn't make the relationship work and I was the leader of the family, that I was to blame as the man as well. So whatever, it comes down to whatever she does, I got blamed for, and they were not willing to move from that position at all. So I do personally believe that there is leadership in a marriage, and I do believe that men, for the most part, are lead, and in our religious tradition, yours and mine, in Christian faith, the scriptures talk about those kinds of things. I took that very seriously, but there's also something called followership. And if I can go lead and say, hey, here's where we're going. If somebody doesn't want to go, that is absolutely on them and not on me. And that's ultimately what took place in my marriage for sure. And again, no accountability for her. Last I heard, she was leading women now on a women's retreat and things like that. So you would figure that instead of in situations like this, instead of pastors and those in the church kind of trying to discover what actually took place and making sure they had both sides of the story, which is also a biblical concept, honestly, they take one and they don't bother to go any further. And that's ultimately part of the problem as well. And it provides and it fosters this lack of accountability and this crowd, this mob mentality. I mean, it really was, for me, kind of a mob mentality. I lost friends from my church. There were some that just said they weren't going to continue to communicate with me. And ultimately, I was although I wasn't a member of the church there, so they couldn't necessarily excommunicate me. I was, for all intents and purposes, excommunicated without even a single personal word to me about any of this. So this mob mentality is something they're trying to foster inside the church. And ultimately, the other part of this is they're using whatever religious belief they can find to crucify you, to abuse you further, particularly if you divorce. And let me kind of explain how that looked like in my life. The scriptures, of course, do not speak favorably of divorce, and in most religious traditions, divorce is kind of seen as a no-no. And I would agree that in most cases, divorce shouldn't be. The Bible speaks specifically about adultery and speaks about marriage abandonment and some other things. And I think you and I are going to do a session on that this season, talking about divorce and how we arrived at the idea of divorce. So for people who don't want to dig further, they can go, oh, well, you're just divorcing. And this is also how the mob the mob mentality was used against me. They take this one statement out of the scriptures where Jesus says, don't divorce, and they use that against me without talking about infidelity, without talking about emotional abandonment of the relationship, without talking about the other kinds of things this person is doing, the narcissist is doing, so that on the other side of it, the mob is armed to the hilt with ammo against, and I use the word ammo in quotes because it's really not ammo. There's more to the scriptures than just one verse. But this is ultimately how they do it. They take this one belief or this one statement, and they unilaterally throw it out there and create this mob against you. And they'll use absolutely any belief they can use to destroy you.
Correct.
The way my church did it was they began to tell people that I was dead. And in some capacity, actually just began to embrace that. And I had a friend in my networking group who had actually attended the same church. And although the leadership of the church, I guess, did not know that we were in the same networking group, and he was doing some work over at my house and pulled me aside one day and flat out told me, he said, man, I got to tell you something. He said, I was with one of the pastors over in our church, and the pastor said, hey, there's a widow in the church who could really use some help. Would you help her out? And he said, absolutely. He says, the Bible says take care of widows and orphans, so I'd be happy to go do that. So do you mind telling me who it was? And the pastor gave him my ex's name. And he said to me, his response was just this absolute look of puzzling. He goes, well, I hate to tell you, but John is still alive, and he's in my networking group. And he goes, oh, yeah, well, we just consider him dead. So they'll do and say anything, even to the mob, to get everybody on their side.
You know what? It's funny because, not funny, sorry, ironic that they were using you being the leader of your family against you. Well, they were using that I need to submit to my husband against me. So instead of using these as shields, they're using these as weapons. Because my pastor also said to me, well, you need to submit to your husband. And I said, but that's only half the verse, right? It's as he is submitting to Christ.
Yes.
And, my husband was bisexual. He was watching gay porn. He was having adulterous affairs with men, women. And so it was like, can we discuss that for a minute?
And also, again, because you've said this stuff, and asking you to do things that were completely inappropriate as well.
Yes.
On top of that.
And I don't want to say as a Christian woman, I don't think any woman should do these things, right? That they don't feel in their spirit feels right sexually. And there's no judgment. Listen, if you're into that, then go ahead. But I was a new Christian, and I was going to church. I was taking his daughter to church like every Wednesday after school. And then I was going to church on Sundays, serving. I was at one point representing the church, so I actually helped out on a couple of cases that the church had. So it just wasn't my thing. I really was looking for a one-to-one relationship with my husband, and that's just not what he was about. And I didn't know that, John, until quite into the relationship and marriage. He would say, that he was just being kinky, or, that type of thing. And I thought, okay, well, this is like not feeling right or good. And so when we finally got to the point where we were talking to the pastor and he said the word submit, I was like, I will 100% submit to my husband.
Which is followership, right? That's
right.
So we're talking about leadership, and your husband's saying, go do all these things that are opposite of any sane faith tradition, probably, right?
Yes.
And he's leading you in that direction, and you do not submit to those kinds of things. You do not follow in situations like that where somebody's leading you down a path of destruction. If somebody's decided they're going to take a car and drive it off a cliff, I'm not getting in. and you were wise not to get in. And submission has its boundaries as well, and that's why the second half of the verse is important. And in your particular situations, it's just as abusive. They're saying to you as the wife that you are not following the way
Correct.
you should follow. Where in
Correct.
my case, they're saying, so this doesn't just happen with men, and this doesn't just happen with women. You get crucified on both sides of these things, or can be, and we wind up with situations where we're kind of thrown out and discarded by the church. That word is discard, right? That happens there too, in these environments that protect narcissism and provide no accountability whatsoever.
Right, and I want to just say one thing. The church, once we got separated, I was attending that church for a couple of, I would say, weeks after, but there was a particular pastor who was a missionary, and I had gone to the Philippines with her on a missions trip and to Peru. And John, she just dumped me like so quickly, and even though I had disclosed a little bit, like not the gay porn stuff, because that just was like an absolute no-no. Like, how do you tell someone about that your husband is interested in the opposite sex? But she knew a little bit of my story, and she even said to me at one point, like, I feel like you're being abused. But she dumped me like as if I had like the scarlet letter A. And that was the one that really hurt, because I was like, well, you sort of knew what my husband was like, and so why are you dumping me as a friend? And so that was really difficult. And as you know my story, I moved to New York City, Manhattan, for the next 13 years, and I was bi-coastal, so I didn't really go back to that church. I want to say one thing, though. My brother continued to go to that church, and we just recently, the last month, found out that those same pastors, okay, that we're talking about, they helped to marry his ex-wife, who cheated on my husband after 3 months of marriage. Wow. And went with another man, married that man, divorced that man because she cheated on him. And these pastors, now she's on her third marriage, and she's not even 40, by the way. And they're the pastors that married her and put it on social media. Wow. And so I just finally, after 15 years, I blocked them. I was like, you know what? You guys you don't have discernment if you're doing these things, yes. Right? So I sort of felt, I have to be honest, I sort of felt vindicated. And when I told my brother, I said, they helped marry your ex-wife, he just said, I know. He said, I hope she doesn't start going to the church, because I don't think I haven't seen her. But all that to say that sometimes with the passage of time, like, God does reveal all, and I really do believe that. And I think I needed to see that to realize these pastors don't have discernment, and they don't know what they're doing.
I hate to agree with that, but it really is ultimately kind of true. Like, they're not acquainted with this kind of evil. I think as it comes their way, they just don't know what to go do with it, and ultimately that's a problem. And unfortunately, that's where we live, and that's where many people who I think go to leadership in the church for help do not find the help they need. And honestly, if you're a pastor out there and listening to this, please go educate yourself on this, and at the very least, go educate yourself on this scripturally, because there are passages in Scripture that address people like this, and it'll list out some stuff, and I'm going to try and find that scripture, and I'll upload it later. But it says, if people are this, have nothing to do with them. And these lists describe narcissists. And having nothing to do with somebody is what we call no contact. So
Yes,
we're having to
100%.
live this out day in and day out, and we're obeying the scriptures by not doing these kinds of things and following what we believe God has given us and avoiding people like this, and whether they're family or not. And ultimately that, in order to protect ourselves, in order to even just be able to go do the basics in life as a human, these are the kinds of things a narcissist victim has to go do to protect themselves against what's taking place. And it's deeply unfortunate, but but go educate yourself. Go read up on Pharaoh. Pharaoh has ridiculously narcissistic tendencies if you read up on him in the scriptures. Go read up on Jezebel and read the way she treats people as well. Also ridiculously narcissistic. And there are others in the scriptures as well who act this way. Saul, also ridiculously narcissistic to the point where the guy basically tried to kill his own kid. So these are not the kinds of things God would embrace. And all of this comes together, I think, in a package. And the package is this: the church, your narcissist, and whoever else will listen to them in the mob is making you out to be an irreligious person in their eyes. So this person is not following God. Person is not following Allah. Or this person is, you've left the faith, is what the mantra will be. And that winds up being the mob's excuse for not involving you in their lives and for departing from you. I know specifically in my life, it's unilaterally. Not only did my church not want to hear not hear what I was going through and not ask, they would not have a conversation with me about it. But my parents are doing the same thing. Why? Because they believe, I'm certain that I'm faithless and that I've left the faith. My kids, likewise, I've faithless and left the faith. Other friends, faithless and left the faith. This is the mentality, and this is the picture of you that they're trying to create that makes you out to be the irreligious person when perhaps you are the most religious and faith-filled person in the room.
Yeah, and I just want to say they're judging you without knowing all the
Correct.
evidence, without knowing all the facts, right? It's like when I go into a courtroom, even if I bring the motion, which allows me to go first and speak to the judge, I always let the opposition speak first. You know why? Because once the opposition starts their arguments, the judge is going to go, wow, that all makes sense, right? And then there's a pause, and then it's like, okay, they turn to me. Okay, counsel, what's your position? And then I start to fill in the gaps, right? And then they go, oh, okay. And so then the first person that spoke sounds like an idiot, right? And they sound like they do not want to give the entire facts, right? So I feel like in the church, even though we're taught not to judge, because the reality is we don't know the full story. And I feel like pastors do a lot of judging and finger pointing. And so they're like, well, look, she stayed in the church. She's doing all this stuff. And I always say covert female narcissists are the type that they're at the soccer events, they're at, front row, they're baking the cookies for the teachers, they're, PTA lead, all that stuff, because they like leadership, they like to be seen, right? Where like the victim is like trying to hold on for dear life. They're either depressed, suicidal, they don't know what reality is anymore because they have a distorted reality because what they're living is constantly being questioned. And they're like, narcissists, I didn't say that. This is your problem. All this stuff. So I feel like in churches, there's a lot of judgment. And that's what I felt like, and that's why they can just shun you and say, okay, you're out, and we'll keep the person, like your ex-wife, we'll keep that person who keeps coming back, even though that person is the narcissist.
And I want to read this because I think this matters. And I want to go back to a little disclaimer that we shared last time around. Christian faith is Padideh's and my background. So this is not to be preachy in any kind of way. We're not trying to proselytize you. We're not trying to change your mind in any kind of way that you need to go move towards Christianity. That is not the purpose of this. What we're talking about is the religious environment we are familiar with. And just because that's our religious tradition, we believe these things also happen in other religious traditions. So when we talk with pastors, it might be rabbis, it might be whoever the spiritual leaders are. So please make those intellectual jumps in your head to your own faith when we talk about these kinds of things. We're just talking about our own experience. And I want to come back to something in the scriptures. It says this, and this is 2 Timothy 3:1, and it says, "But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves." What does that sound like? A narcissist? Yes.
Narcissist.
Lovers of money. Any of you guys been financially abused by a narcissist? I know my ex is hiding $20,000 on a credit card from me. Boastful. Sound like a narcissist? Proud. Sound like a narcissist? Abusive. Sound like a narcissist. Disobedient to their parents. Maybe. Ungrateful. Sound like a narcissist? Unholy. Sound like a narcissist? Without love. Unforgiving. Slanderous. Without self-control. Brutal. Not lovers of the good. Treacherous. Rash. Conceited. Lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. And listen to this, having a form of godliness but denying its power. What does that mean? It means that they look religious. They look ridiculously religious but really aren't. And this is where the scripture ends. It says this, have nothing to do with them. So when we talk about no contact, we're talking about something that is a religious principle. It's describing specifically the character traits of somebody who is narcissistic and have nothing to go do with them. Now, where this will backfire on you is if you begin to do these kinds of things and you divorce or whatever you have to go do to stay away from the narcissist, you're saying you're drawing a line in the sand and saying, do not cross this line. I do not want a relationship with you. I don't want to be in touch with you. I don't want to talk to you. And that's how I feel about my narcissist ex. I'm not interested in conversation. I'm not interested in texts. If something ridiculous is happening with the kids, absolutely text me about those kinds of things. But ultimately, if I don't want any other relationship with you. But the other way they paint you as irreligious and the other way they paint you as off the rails is they will continue to offer a relationship to you. So they're in the church and they're going, I just love it if my husband came back, or I just love it if my wife came back. My heart is open to that. I just hope that they find their way back from their wandering faith and can have a relationship with me again. When in reality, what's happening is the narcissist wants you back in relationship so they can continue to be boastful, proud, abusive, unloving, ungrateful, and all those other kinds of things. The Bible teaches stay away from them. But because they continue to not only be open to relationship with you, but continue oftentimes to chase relationship with you. In narcissistic circles, we call that a Hoover. So they are continuing to try and draw you back into relationships so that they can perpetuate their abuse. And in these religious circles, they're like, oh my gosh, I would just love it if he would come back. I would love it if she would come back. I'm so open to relationship. My heart is just forgiving and full for them. I'll forgive them of anything that they've done to me. I'm just open to relationship with them. And they'll even chase you for a relationship and want to be your friend, as certainly my ex has as well. And I'm not offering relationship to her. I'm taking that last part of the scripture and going, have nothing to do with them. I cannot have anything to do with this person. But those kinds of things and those kinds of beliefs are ignored in the larger religious community and in the mob. So you not only are you painted as irreligious, but you are also painted as somebody who's not willing to return, and that return winds up being their line in the sand in order for them to have a relationship with you again, when in all honesty you're better off without them all.
Oh yeah, and to that point, my ex-husband sent me a DM, which is direct message, asking me to go to dinner with him in Beverly Hills. And when I said, no, absolutely not, why would I want to? And this was in the last, I would
I'd
say,
beat
3
you with
months.
a stick if you
Why
did.
would I want
I'd
to?
beat you with a stick. There's no way you're going to go do that. And you've been divorced how long now?
Right. Wow, 15
Yes.
years, 13 or 15 years. And then when I said, no, why would I want to do that? He said, well, bring along your husband too.
Let's all be friends.
And I'm thinking to myself, on what planet, does this man live on? And so I said, okay, I'm going to block this new account that you just established to reach out to me, and I blocked him. But then I told my husband, and my husband is such a great man. He just laughs. He's like, I have no doubt that he wants to see you because he lost a gem. And even though he's remarried, by the way, my ex-husband married a Playboy playmate. So everything that he said to me that he was going to leave me for a younger model, all this stuff, he actually did all that. So you would think, third marriage, he's super happy now, but why would he reach out to me? Because like you said, he's trying to hoover me. He's trying to find his ex supply, right? And it's like my husband just laughs and he's like, I don't blame him. The guy's miserable. He's a narcissist. And I would never break bread with this guy because of how he treated you and abused you. And what would be the point? We don't even have kids together. So it's like, there's not, like, we're not co-parenting or anything. So it just goes back to what you say. These people are they're evil. They really are evil.
Well, and they paint this narrative. Let's take your situation, for example, where you're like, I'm just not hanging out with this guy. If you guys were both in the same church, you'd be saying, oh, she's just not forgiving. You know, she's so far from God because she doesn't want to be around him. You know, it's been 15 years and she should really have forgiveness in her heart for this man. And no.
Right.
That's what you're supposed to go do with
And
these
I want to
people.
just be clear about one thing. I have 100% forgiven my ex-husband. 100%. However, I have not forgotten what he's done. And so I am no contact with him, and that's what I always recommend to people dealing with narcissists. Now, if you have a child, then you have to go limited contact, and there's ways that you can do that through parenting apps and things like that. So I've forgiven, I've not forgotten, and I want nothing to do with him. So whenever he starts this, new Instagram or TikTok, and he'll try to DM and all that stuff, I want nothing to do with him. And I don't waste my breath on him either, but I do reach out to you and I go, can you believe this shit? Excuse my language. But I literally go, do you believe this shit? And then I'll screenshot it and you're like, you get mad for me.
I do, because I want to beat him with a stick. That's crazy. I just want him to leave you alone. It's like 15 years is enough. I don't want you are living out your faith. You're living out your faith by not being in touch with him.
Correct.
So,
and also, by the way, he's remarried. So what type of woman would I be if I'm like, oh yeah, let's go and have a steak dinner at, Morton's or Spago. Let's go have Italian food. Yeah, this sounds great. Let's go to Lavo. Those are places I go with my husband. Mm-hmm. I didn't even go with another man to have a dinner. And what kind of woman would I be if I thought that was okay when this guy is remarried the third time around?
And what kind of conversation are you going to have with this person over dinner? Hey, here's my new job. And I mean, it's just, it is an exercise in absolute ridiculousness that you even got asked.
Right, but also, not to throw your ex under the bus.
Go ahead.
Your ex also asked you and would text you to come fix her
hot tub,
her jacuzzi. And when you wouldn't respond for a couple of weeks, she would resend it as if you hadn't seen it. I mean, it was like, I remember that, John. I think that was like the beginning of this year or last year. I was like, What is she thinking? Why does she think you're going to just come over with your tools and fix her hot tub that she sits in either by herself or with another man? I'm just saying.
Well, it wasn't quite like that. She wanted to get rid of it and wanted me to go work on it so it could be removed. But yeah, the principle's the same. You know, like I'm going to go do that. I mean, the appropriate response to somebody who's sane, which she's not, is that's a husband's job. And guess what? I'm not your husband. I have nothing to do with you. And as much as the church or the Christian mob or whoever it might be who has listened to these people, or family even, is saying you need to offer relationship, you need to forgive and forget, our faith tradition teaches differently. And it says if these are the kinds of people you're dealing with, and they've proven this over time, have absolutely nothing to go do with them. And this is unfamiliar, I think. This is unfamiliar territory in the church. The church wants to be redemptive. They want everybody to play nice, and sometimes it's just that, one, they don't dig deep enough to find this list of crap that's going on, and then on the other end of it, they just want you to be forgiving. But there's a difference between being forgiving and setting yourself in the path of a bus. You again. I can forget. Yes, again.
Yeah, again. Like you've already done it once, and you're they try to take you out, and you were depressed, suicidal, on medication, all the above, and now the church wants you to go back again into that snake pit with them, and you're like, no, absolutely not. I 100% forgive. I will not forget. And I want nothing to do with them. That means no contact. So do not, under any circumstances, let the church or this person or your family, pastor, I don't care, cat, dog, whatever, try to guilt trip you, because that's the other thing churches do. They'll guilt trip you. Well, the person has changed. No, they have not, because we know that narcissists do not change and they cannot change. So do not, because that's the next thing that's going to happen, John.
Yep.
Do not let them guilt trip you. Stand firm where you are and just say, flee from me. And, they'll flee from you. They'll come back around. But you got to do it every time.
Yep. And these are the tactics. Again, they're painting you as an irreligious person. And this last thing I kind of wanted to address may even be more personal in some respects. It's one thing that they paint you as irreligious because you're not following perhaps the individual verse of Scripture, but you're following the heart of the Scriptures or the heart of your faith. But I think that all of this can make you question your own faith as well. And I think this has been the hardest part for me. And let me kind of unpack that a little bit. I certainly believe in God. I believe in Jesus. That's my Christian tradition. You have your personal faith as well in whatever being that might be. And I hope you appreciate that. So when I've prayed and I've asked God for help, here I am, and it's like, and ultimately what I'd hoped for was my ex's healing. Like she would move from being this kind of person that list describes, boastful, proud, all those other kinds of things, into being a genuine person of faith. And that didn't happen. And ultimately, my departure from my relationship with her, divorcing her, which again, I've said this before on Mike, and I'll say it again. I don't believe in divorce, but I did it. That's how far it took me. And my divorcing her was my last means of telling her the way you are living is not being a person of faith and is completely unacceptable. She wouldn't pay attention to those kinds of things when I was having those conversations with her when we were married. So it was my last ditch. It was the last card I could play to say, I'm sorry, but the way you're living and the way you're treating me is unacceptable. So you ask God for help and you feel like he's not showed up. The church has betrayed you, and not worse than betraying you, they have probably not even listened to your side of the story. That's certainly the case in my shoes as well. They paint you as irreligious because you divorce or leave the person, or are not submissive in your case, or not leading like in my case, and beat you over the head with the scriptures or whatever faith tradition or document they might have. And you are left on the other side of this, reeling in your faith and going, and worse yet, you are attached to somebody who claims to be religious and is genuinely not a person of faith. So your head messes with you. It goes, I mean, if this person says they're a Christian, this person says they're a person of faith, if that's what this faith is like, I want nothing to do with it.
Correct.
And you reach this place where you are in this crisis of faith where you go, okay, all of the people who are Christians, quote unquote, have abandoned you. And I'll go through the list in my situation: my church, my pastor, my friends, my parents, my sisters, my kids, all have abandoned relationship with me in one shape, one form or another, because they believe I divorced and they believe this is against their tradition. And eventually you go, okay, if this is what it's all about, if this is what faith is all about, then I'm just kind of out. And there's this temptation to just walk away from it all. And I've known people on both sides. Some people just double down and go, you know what? This has made my faith stronger. God is with me, and God is protecting me, and he's helped me to move from one place to another. And I think you've said words like that, where you felt like your faith is stronger through this. And I kind of come at this from the other side, where I go, it has made me question my faith. It has made me question the church. It has made me question people who claim to be Christians and act like the most unloving people on the planet. And this is the result, this is the end result of narcissistic abuse for many people. And you are left with a shattered kind of faith and going, okay, what is faith again? Where you have to kind of go back to square one. And I've had to go back to square one. What is Christianity? It is this. Do I still believe in this? Yes, I believe in this. Do I still believe in this? Yes, I believe in this. But I can't embrace what the church has become, and I won't embrace what they've become. That doesn't mean that there isn't perhaps another body of faith that would embrace me. But this particular one, I've had to separate myself from. I've had to go back and question what I was raised in because my parents are acting this way. And it will, when your whole world turns upside down, it can feel like God has left you. And it can feel like your faith is gone. And there are a couple of things I would like to say to you if you're in that position. One is that God has not left you, or whatever your version of him is. God has not left you. God loves you. God cares for you. And these kinds of things have happened to you not because you didn't work at the right thing, and not because these people who claim to be people of faith are people of faith. They're not. And you have to realize that because your actions will follow your heart. And if somebody's actions consistently don't follow their heart, you have to question what's really inside their heart. So if a narcissist claims to be a person of faith, but continues to abuse you, continues to be a lover of money, and for money to be the most important thing, to be proud, to be deceptive, you go back through that list if you like, and see and go, is this the way they're acting? Because out of the heart the mouth speaks, and out of the heart people act. So it instead of making you question your own faith, I would question theirs instead.
That's a great way to put it. Oh my goodness.
And realize that again, a tree is known by its fruit. And if the fruit of somebody's life is hatred, malice, abuse, anger, rage, deception, gaslighting, put that if that's the what comes out of them consistently, then what's inside them is not real. And you have to realize that. And that person can be a pastor, that person can be a parent, it can be a friend, it can be part of the Christian mob, it can be anybody in your circle of friends. Instead of questioning your faith, realize that God is present, that he cares for you, and part of his leaving was part of his protection for you, and you're honoring him and not offering your body or your life to somebody to continue to be a punching bag.
Is a good person and not a narcissist. You said, I hope that she finds healing. Like a narcissist would never, ever, ever say that, right? Because they don't care about you. They just want to hurt you, and they want, when you're hurt, that's when they're happy. So for you to say that after everything that you've been through, John, just goes to show that you're an empath, you are a man of faith. Listen, it's okay. Like, God is not scared when we are actually questioning our faith. It's not like he's sitting up there going, well, you know what? This I did not expect. And he doesn't want us just to be blindly obedient to him. Yep. And so when people say that, and I have had people say, like, where's God in all this? And I'm like, okay, well, let's take some accountability here. Did you choose this person, or did God choose this person? Well, I don't know. I kind of got in the flesh. You know how Christians talk. I kind of got in the flesh, and but I had a gut feeling. Okay, well, that gut feeling is the Holy Spirit, by the way, that you did not listen to. And now you've got yourself in this relationship or marriage with someone when God was never in that. Yep. And so I think as victim survivors, we also have to take accountability for our part in it. Otherwise, we're no better than the narcissist, right? Yep. And so what you said was so impactful. You said, I pray and I hope that she heals from this. Yep. And so we really just want to leave you with that, is that you're not alone. We say this every episode. You're not alone. We understand you. We are a healthy, positive community of survivors.
And your God has not betrayed you. Your God has not betrayed you in this. People have betrayed you who perhaps do not have genuine faith. But God has not betrayed you. And he's with you. Padideh, an amazing conversation today. And speaking of healing, I hope you feel better. I know you're under the weather. Thanks for doing the podcast anyways today. I think this was good conversation. And I hope you have a wonderful week. And for those of you who are regular listeners, if you have questions or want to converse with us about these things, you can reach us at narc.podcast on Instagram, or Padideh is on Instagram at Jafari Legal is her nickname there. I'm Male Victims of Female Narcissists on Instagram as well, and I can be reached there. And also, you could, if you're interested, you can reach out to me at malevictimsoffemalenarcissist.com. And by the way, I don't even know that we've mentioned, we do have a website too, and you can find us at what is the link again? I think it's narcissistabuserecoverychannel.com. I had a brain meltdown there for a second, but we're on the web too, and you can find all our latest podcasts there.
And I just wanted to mention too, this is a little bit of a treat, but John does one-on-one coaching, and I just started a coaching business as well, because what happens is a lot of our listeners come to us and they're like, well, my case is in a different state, so you can't help me, but they do need coaching to kind of get through the divorce process. And a lot of attorneys, unfortunately, don't know how to deal with narcissists. So we are offering now one-on-one coaching as well.
That's fantastic. Thanks for reminding me about that. And absolutely, if you're interested, reach out to either one of us and we'd be happy to help you. So we hope you have a wonderful week, and we hope that your life is narc-free.
Thank you for listening to the Narcissist Abuse Recovery Channel. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To hear other episodes or read the associated blogs, visit www.narcissistabuserecoverychannel.com and be sure to follow us on Instagram with the handle narc.podcast. The guest views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are their own. The information presented is for general informational purposes only and is not intended to be legal advice. The co-hosts are not licensed therapists. Seek professional help as information is often state-specific. The Narcissist Abuse Recovery Channel is produced in studios in California and Georgia.